So again, ladies and gentlemen, today we are going over adding integers. Adding integers, that is the title of today's lesson. Some of you guys might recall that on Friday, we did 8-1, we were adding integers using models. The models that we used were the number line and the counters. And while that is useful, the only purpose of that lesson was to show you really what is happening when we're adding positive and negative numbers. Today, I'm going to teach you how to add positive and negative numbers without using these models because sometimes it's not very practical to use these models. So moving on, ladies and gentlemen, so let's begin with our first set of rules, which is when you're adding numbers that have the same signs. What do I mean by numbers with the same signs? Well, you've been doing that since kinder. Anything like 5 plus 7, 3 plus 2, 8 plus 100. Anytime that you had two positive numbers, you're adding numbers of the same sign. Okay, we have positive 5 plus positive 7 gave me positive 12. If you have 5 positive counters and you add 7 more positive counters, you now have 12 positive counters. And so the pattern that we see here, ladies and gentlemen, is that when you have two numbers that have the same sign, you just add them together and you keep the same sign that those numbers had. For example, let us look at number 11 from our assignment. These examples in these notes are from your assignment that you have up here. And so I encourage you that you number them accordingly so that you already have those accounted for. So number 11, you will find -5 plus -7. The first thing that I want you to realize, ladies and gentlemen, is that we are indeed adding. That is going to be the case for all of these examples. We are always adding. Okay, the rules that you're going to see only apply to addition problems. Okay, so we're adding -5 and -7. Notice how these two numbers have the same sign. They are both negative. -5 plus -7. And hopefully you guys realize that the parentheses is just here so that you see that if I didn't have it, it would just say -5 plus -7 without that.
To the front office, please.
Okay, so we're adding two negative numbers. Ladies and gentlemen, when we add and they have the same sign, we simply have to add them together. So 5 plus 7 is 12. And we're going to keep the same sign of the numbers we just added. It's like adding 5 negative counters with 7 more negative counters. So how many negative counters do I have total now? Now I have 12 negative counters. So as you can see, it's just the same as if these were positive, except that we're adding in the negative direction. Let us look at another example. This is number 16 from our textbook. And here we can see that we are adding -3 plus -29. Again, we are adding, we are combining these two numbers. That's what addition means. It means that you're combining them together. And when you combine 3 negatives with 29 negatives, that gives us 32 negatives. Again, we just added these together and we kept the same sign. So this is negative, so my answer is negative. And that is only true when we're adding two numbers that have the same sign, meaning they're both positive or they're both negative. All right, now that should be pretty simple, but what happens when we add numbers that have different signs? Well, let us look at number 10 from our textbook. We look at number 10 from our assignment today. Notice how we're adding -3 and we're combining that with +9. Notice how they have different signs. Now, before I continue, I do want you to remember that this only works when we are adding. Okay, whenever the operation is addition, we're going to follow these rules. And it's going to be a little bit confusing, but please follow along. Think about what's happening here. We're combining a number that wants to go to the left because it's negative with a number that wants to go to the right because it's positive. All right, so even though we're combining them together, instead of becoming even more negative or more positive, it's going to be somewhere in the middle of those two numbers on the number line. And so in order to see what that is, ladies and gentlemen, when you're adding numbers of different signs, what you have to do is you have to find the difference between those two numbers. I'm going to say that again. When you're adding numbers of different signs, you have to find the difference of those two numbers. And in math, the difference simply means subtraction. But Mr. Lugo, you said we were adding. Yes, but we're adding two numbers that want to go in opposite directions. So that's why, ladies and gentlemen, when you're adding numbers that have different signs, they're actually working against each other. So we're actually going to get the difference of those two numbers. We are going to subtract them. So the difference between 9 and 3 is 6. That is the difference between 9 and 3. All right, so our first step, we're adding numbers with different signs. So we're actually going to subtract them. We got the difference. And we're going to keep the sign of the larger number, meaning do we have more positives or more negatives that we're adding together? So here we have 3 negatives and we have 9 positives. Obviously we have more positives, so my answer is going to be not only 6, but it's going to be positive 6. Okay, so we're going to keep the larger sign. Between -3 and positive 9, positive 9 has the bigger absolute value. Okay, there's more negatives than positive, maybe more positives than negatives, so my final answer is going to be positive. Let me recap what I just did. So we're adding 3 negatives with 9 positives, okay? They're not going to help each other out, okay? It's almost like they're going to battle with one another. Just by looking at it, I can see that my answer is going to be positive because I have more positives. And when I combine them, I have to get the difference, the subtraction between both of them. So 9 minus 3 is 6. And my final answer is going to be positive 6 because there's more positives than negatives. Let's try another one. Number 12 from our textbook says -14 plus positive 6. So -14 plus positive 6. All right, let's go ahead. We notice that we're adding 2 numbers with different signs. So one of them wants to be negative and the other one obviously wants to be positive. So even though I'm adding them, I'm actually going to subtract. I'm going to get the difference between these 2 numbers. And the difference or the subtraction between 14 and 6 is 8. But is it going to be positive or negative 8? Well, notice how we have more negatives. So my answer is going to be negative. My answer is -8. Yes, if you were to use counters, it would take a lot longer, but you would get the same answer if you were to use the number line. In fact, let me use the number line really quickly to show you what's happening here. So -14, so if this is 0, let's say 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. So that's -14, right? And then we have all of these here. And to -14, we are going to add 6. And remember, 6 is positive, so 6 wants to go to the right. So we're going to add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that leads me right here, which happens to be 2, 4, 6, 8, -8. All right, same exact thing, ladies and gentlemen, as what we did with the number line. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. Hopefully this gave you some understanding. We're going to be reviewing this a lot more this week. But again, if I go back to the top, whenever I am adding 2 numbers that have the same sign, just add them, combine them in that same direction. -5 plus -7, -12. Okay, it grew in the negative direction, if you will. -3 plus -29, -32, because they're both going in the negative direction. Now, when you're combining or adding 2 numbers that are going in opposite directions, you have to get the difference or the subtraction between those 2 and just keep the sign of the larger number. -3 plus 9 is positive 6. The next one, -14 plus 6, again, different signs. So we subtract them, it's 8, but we have more negatives than positives. So it's going to be -8. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you found that helpful. And I will see you, well, make sure that you do the assignment. The pages are right here. On Schoology, if you look at the title of the assignment, make sure you read the directions, by the way. If you look at the title of the assignment, you will see the actual problems that you need to do, which in this case, we go to Monday, we have to do numbers 6 through 21, 23, and 24. So again, and I wasn't even sharing my screen, but you'll see that on Schoology. Hopefully you found this helpful, and I will see you next time.